Well, hello everyone. This is Gosia Klecun from EduNation, this time in EduNation Global. I hope you're enjoying your evening and I hope to see you all here with me because we have, I think, a great topic. So just let me know that you're here with me, that you can hear me, you can see the video, that everything's all right, and we are going to start in a short time. Okay, I can see some people coming, posting, saying hello. Tell me where you're from. Is there only Poland listening this time in English, or do we have other countries? I hope you can all hear me and see me very well. My name is Gosia Klecun and I'm with EduNation Global today talking about, I think, a very important topic for all of us. Thank you. Hello, Aga. Hello, Richa. Is that the right pronunciation? I hope so. And hello, Bogusław. I've got 3 listeners at least, so I'm super happy. Okay, everyone. Let's get right into it. Just remember, so that you know, if you're not with us every Tuesday in Polish, EduNation Global are free webinars. You are going to get recording. The recording is on YouTube. Czechia is here. Oh, great. And we have also certificates of attendance. I've got Warsaw again. All right, great. I'm also from Warsaw. So although it may seem that I'm from London, but it's just a lovely classroom that hosted me for the recording. All right, so you might not know who I am. So this is me. I'm Gosia Klecun. I've been teaching for 20 something years, 20 plus years, and I've been teaching in public schools in Poland, public high schools, elementary schools, and also I currently I am teaching in a language school. I'm a director of studies, a teacher trainer, an exam teacher, and I know all about assessment because assessing is what I do for living. So I hope that you are going to enjoy my webinar, which is really, really personal. I try to keep it personal because I honestly believe so, that testing and assessment is a really personal matter, and I'll try to prove it to you. While we are diving in, I hope, just like in Polish version of Tuesday webinars, the chat is going to be active and you are going to offer me your feedback because, well, whether we like it or not, we met here to talk about formative assessment, which is, among other things, it's all about feedback. So I hope I'm going to get some from you as well. But first you have a short task to do. So where do you stand as far as those things are concerned? I'm going to wait a moment for your answers. Are you more into tests or more no tests, or 50-50? Is it short tests that you like? Or term tests you prefer? Is it open close, or maybe ABCD because it's so easy to check? You just need the key and that's it. And the answer is always 1. Like the best answer is always 1. No tests. Okay, I've got no test options. Do I have 50-50? I feel like in the auction, who gives more? Short test and open close. Perfect. A mixture. Even better. A short test for a start of the lesson. Great. We have so many options. Great. Inner motivation matters. Yes, that's true. That's true. But if you're teaching in a public school, then, well, inner motivations are sometimes difficult to achieve, don't you think? So, why am I talking about assessment, formative assessment? Because in my early days of teaching, not that early, although I am a teacher at heart. I'm from a family of teachers. So teaching career is something that I seriously considered since a very early age. I had a lot of support from my from senior teachers, and really, I'm not saying it in a sarcastic way. Oh, Robel, I've got my colleague here as well. Perfect. Okay, so I had a lot of support from senior teachers, and I'm not saying it in a sarcastic way. They were really trying to help me. They were trying to give me this, this help any new teacher needs, and they were telling me that I should be strict and not see them, meaning the students, my true colors, that my serenity is my weakness, that my bad marks are my sword and shield that I can hide behind. I can always threaten with it. I can use it as a real weapon. I shouldn't be smiling because, well, if they see me too smiley, they will think I'm lenient, and so on. And it's never too many grades. Even if the place in your register is finishing, you should still be giving grades. And, well, it couldn't have worked. And let me tell you why. Because, well, try to make a serious, strict teacher out of that face, right? It couldn't work simply. So it wasn't me, because I'm compassionate and understanding, and I have always been like that. Because I hated school myself as a student. Maybe hating is too much of a word, but I definitely didn't give it as much attention as everybody expected me to. I never cared about grades, and it's not an overstatement because my parents were also very supportive in that matter, and they never cared about my grades as long as I was passing, not failing my subjects. I smile all the time. I'm really a very smiley person. And I love learning for the sake of it. So when Lucina says inner motivation matters, then I'm all on board, because my inner motivation has always worked for me, and it worked well. So I was looking, as a young teacher, I was looking for a path there for me. And, well, you shared your views on assessments. Now it's time for me to reveal my answers. So I'm more no test option, but I do use tests. I cannot really decide if I prefer short tests more or term tests. I think short tests a little bit more, but I appreciate term tests. I'm an exam teacher. I prepare students for certificates, for maturas, which are Polish state exams, and for 8th graders test, another state exam in Poland. So, well, I have to appreciate the testing. And I'm all in for open clause. I rarely use ABCDs and other choice tests. I do use them from time to time. For example, they are in Kahoots. So I cannot say that I don't use them at all, but I'm not a big fan. And why me? Why I'm talking about assessment? Well, because I've thought it through over my 20 years, and I can share my perspective now. So formative assessment was honestly a big save for me when I heard about it first time. And unfortunately, it wasn't during my studies. Really, I did have information about formative assessment, but it didn't mean anything to me at that time. But then little by little, I decided to adopt it. And when I say little by little, I'm not exaggerating. Again, it's a process. So whatever I'm going to share with you during my webinar, remember that I'm showing you kind of an end product, not all the way to it. So if you are on a different point on this time scale, do not worry and do not fret. You are going to get there and you are going to be happy with your assessment choices. Because then again, if we are different and if we adopt formative and summative assessment in different proportion, it's all fine as long as it is what we are, as it is part of our core values and something that we we want to pass on to our students, then it's all fine. So technically, I have a very long definition of formative assessment, and I'm not going to read it to you. The slide will be there. The presentation is here. You can read it yourself. I have a short summary, and it says, blah, 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 many methods. You do it during class, and it's more and more work. And honestly, this is how it was presented to me at the university. It's not a very encouraging way to present it. Like test, 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 grades, 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 and there is something like formative assessment, but it's basically a very, it's a variety of methods. They are easier and more difficult. You have to do it in the process during your class or during your learning experience, and basically it will mean more and more and more work for you. No new teacher would be encouraged by that definition. I wasn't. So I was really trying to do my best in listening to my senior teachers, not smile that much and be strict, and it wasn't working, and the students weren't really honoring me with their attention and respect. And then I thought that either I'll quit teaching or I'll change something about how I teach, because there is no third option. So that was just great, but fortunately we are doing formal assessment anyway, because, and that's again the same definition, identify concepts students are struggling to understand, adjustments that are being made during our classes. Then there is something about feedback in that very long definition and so on. This is what we are. We are doing it anyway. So if we are doing it anyway, if formative assessment, and it's the good news, right, is part of all of us good teachers. I would say all of us, and maybe it's an overstatement, but I hope there are no teachers in the world that apply no formal assessment whatsoever, because I think it's part of being a teacher, really. So if it's already there, we can also, all the same, use it. And I started using it, and I could say we lived happily ever after, but still we are still living. So the point is, with formative assessment, the whole problem, I think the core of the problem is that it is supposed to be very individual assessment, and it's all very well when you're teaching one-on-one or you have a small group of students. But when you have 20, 30, 40 students, then things get complicated, right? Because we are entering the classroom with certain ideas and expectations and goals, and we learn that one of the children have covered all of it. anyways, because they have private tutoring. Another one is, well, basically okay, and probably that's the best they can do, but their best is not good enough for the school system, or it's, well, good enough but not great, and the kid is doing their best and they are invested in whatever they are doing, right? And the third kid is paying no attention to you, but they are still doing fine because, well, they are intelligent and quite bright, and they are basically they just got it. But we are not happy with their performance because they are, well, just disrespectful and not paying attention and everything. And now you try to square that circle, right? And put it all together, put it all to work. And it's all time consuming. And, well, it is time consuming. And teachers never have enough time. We are spending long hours at work. We are all, now 50 people, are here with me at 9 p.m. having a training, having a webinar. And I'm sitting here, an active teacher, I'm sitting here having a webinar with you. Well, there is never enough time. I hope we are all in agreement, as we are all sitting here, and people watching it later are just a little bit more lucky because they will still devote their time to watch it. So we need a system, and this is what I was aiming at, and I will try to show you how my system works. I hope that you can find the methods there. Maybe you can refer your experiences to it. Maybe you can just remodel it completely so that it works for you. Who knows? Okay, so you probably all know those ways of monitoring the student progress. So, but what I would like to show you basically is that I'm not a person who devotes a lot of time to create materials and to create things before the lesson. I'm not that kind of person. I was that kind of person, but I'm not that kind of person anymore. What I like doing is I love doing everything with my students, or I want my students to do it for me. And formative assessment has this great advantage over summative assessment, tests and everything, although, well, not quite, but we are talking today about formative assessment, that there are many elements of it that can be done by the students themselves. And one of the basis of formative assessment is asking students to give us feedback on how they feel about the work we are doing, so that we can make adjustments, so that we can offer this individual explanations and everything. It is not always possible, but if you're new to the concept, if you're a new teacher and you're sitting there and you're trying to think about it, this is one of the first things that will be offered to you. The system of traffic lights, or in my case, usually the system of 3 post-it notes, because I always keep forgetting those ready-made, elegant traffic lights or 3 circles in different colors or whatever teacher or school provided me to be effective in formative assessment. So I always forget it, I always lose it, and then I end up with 3 post-it notes. One's a stick, and that means I'm good to go. The other one is a question mark. I'm not sure about my progress. And the third one is a cross. I have no idea what I'm doing. And so if you want to start somewhere, you can try using this way of signaling, especially in longer periods of work, when your students are supposed to work independently, in groups, in pairs, and when this work has to be done at some point, but there is space for everyone to work at their own pace. Then you can try that. You can ask students to put signals on their desks, or if you're teaching an online class, you can ask all of them to use a medium such as wait a second, I will tell you which one. Classroom screen. This is what I'm using in some of my group online classes. I'm going to put this the link, the active link into the chat. You can click it and you can see how it works. The classroom screen is generally a very, it's a sandbox for teachers. We have there other elements of classroom management, but one of them are those traffic lights. So students can simply switch on the light on their device, and you can see their screens. If they share screens, you can see their screens, and you can make sure that everybody is working in their own pace, and they are signaling to you simply how they are doing. Well, the problem with it, I signaled it already, so those gadgets are very easy to lose. They take space, and they also, they seem very basic, right? They seem very basic, because what it means, I'm good to go or I'm not sure, right? It doesn't tell you much. If you have to start somewhere, it's good to see how that way of signaling works with you. But as you're progressing, you will surely see that this might not be enough, especially in a very numerous classes, because the information, I'm good to go or I have no idea what I'm doing, doesn't tell you anything. Because what do you mean? Like where? Which part you don't understand? You may not have the time and space to approach everyone individually, and well, then you have to work it out. But this is a start. This is where formative assessment starts. Tell me how you feel about our classroom. Tell me how you feel about the content. Tell me how you feel about this exercise. I'll tell you one more thing. The newer the concept is to you, the smaller part of work you would like your students to give you feedback on. So it's better to ask them every 3 sentences in an exercise than the whole exercise. It's better to ask them about one exercise than a whole page of exercises. You know what I mean. Then the feedback is going to be more precise. When you're more advanced teacher and you anticipate problems more successfully, you may just go easier on it because you know what kind of problems are appearing, you understand how it works. But the more beginner you are, then the smaller chunks you should try to assess this way. Okay. So how to make our students report to us, give us this feedback on how they are doing, but getting at the same time getting more precise information and not getting too much work with it. Well, another way to monitor students' progress is to make them ask questions. And when you ask a group of students, is everything clear? Well, the answer is quite obvious. Yes, of course, it's clear. For some people it's clear, some people won't admit in front of others. For some people, it is going to be just irrelevant and uninteresting, so they don't even bother to answer and so on. And some people are already, outside playing football with their minds. So basically, making students asking questions that could potentially appear on a test or could potentially be asked to explain a problem, like what questions you should ask to be sure that you're going to get the answer explaining you the problem, is one of the ways to check how students are actually doing. How deep is their understanding of the problem? Well, let me give you an example. If we are doing a grammar exercise about past simple and past continuous, past progressive, what kind of questions would have had to be asked? So I would have to give you the key differences between tenses. Well, it can be about the structure. How does the verb look like, right? How do you form the question in past progressive? How do you form a question in past simple? What you should always remember about. What will show you in the sentence which tense is necessary on that low level, right? They're all questions that I could potentially be asking. And so I'm asking my students to put those questions on the board, and I make sure they know they are not going to be the ones who answer. Because if they are going to be the ones to answer, they will make sure to ask the questions they know the answer to. And if they know somebody else will answer the question, there is a chance that they will ask real questions they would like to hear the answers to. This is formative assessment. This gives me the insight in their progress. This gives me the insight in their understanding. This gives me a very practical revision exercise, or that gives me the feedback which elements I should clarify or which elements I should exercise for them to have the answers to those questions, right? So I can keep the questions for the next time. We can try answering them. I can keep them as a revision, part of the revision process, and keep answering the questions. I can also, incorporate them in parts of summative assessment, which means short tests or term tests or any kind of test for that matter, right? So it fulfills all the criteria for formative assessment. It gives me the more precise information than the lights I showed you before, but does it take my time? Of course, but my students are writing the questions, not me. So I'm not trying to guess what's on their minds. I'm rather encouraging them to participate in the process of learning, because asking the right questions that will give us the right answers this very essential part of the learning process. Another way, very easy to monitor student progress, is to ask the questions as an exit ticket. So we were doing a lesson. I hope you all plan your lessons and have the goals you would like your students to achieve. This final thoughts that they should have at the end of the lessons. And mind you, it's never homework is the exercises 1, 2, 3. But it's more about what you can say, what we can talk about, what new things did you learn, or what things you confirmed you've practiced, right? So if we are going to ask them about explanation of the words, giving an example of a structure, miming with two people, creating a short dialogue with the question and the answer that we were practicing, we are going to see how they are doing. And now we can set the criteria for that exit ticket. Is it just an attempt that is going to count as win, or do they have to get it right all the way? So that gives us the opportunity to set the expectations and set the goals for students with different abilities. Some of them are just able, after that lesson or set of lessons, to vaguely realize what they are doing. Some of them are going to have the full sentences, they're going to have the explanations ready because they are more fluent. It depends on the level, of course. It depends on their personal abilities and also the chances of learning and practicing the language. But it gives us the chance to see how we actually did during the lesson or during a string of lessons. The disadvantage, it's time consuming. So with few students, it's not that difficult to ask everyone a question. With with bigger groups, well, it can take some time. So you have to answer yourself that question. Would you like to do it at the end of the lesson? Would you like to do it at the end of the week, for example, or at the end of the 2-week period? Maybe you can just assign enough time to ask everyone and to see how they are doing. Maybe you would like to do it as a game where winners in pair competitions are going forward. But again, it's a game, it's competitive. So maybe it is not going to be comfortable for everyone. And maybe some people are going to be just shy to give us the right answer, and they are going to be discouraged by getting it wrong. It's not a solution to everyone, but it is a solution. I have used it. It has worked for me. Not always, but well, that's teaching. Every lesson and every group is different. Every student is different. So I'm just giving it to you as a proposal. Okay, let's move forward. I don't know if you're familiar with KWL chart, which is a chart that students try to work with, especially in the lessons that are more informative than I don't know how shall I, now I started thinking about it. Oh, that's so wrong. It works when you actually have some background knowledge to use. But then again, when is the situation when students have no background knowledge? Now I cannot think about it clearly. But anyways, K stands for I know. So this is the moment where students try to activate their background knowledge. If we are learning about dinosaurs, what do you know about dinosaurs? W stands for I want to know. And this is the most tricky part in that whole chart, because before students can actually get there, they have to learn to ask meaningful questions. But fortunately, in my presentation, we were there already. So students have to learn that. And one of the ways to teach them is to actually do it with them. You cannot assume that students will just know and just follow your lead at the beginning, especially when you're working with such process changes, just like formative assessment. You do have to go with your students all the way. As much irritating it can be, as much time consuming, as much problematic it can be, you cannot just assume that I have this amazing method that is going to let me just opt out of all my grades and tests, and I'm going to participate with students in this wonderful experience of learning. No, it's not going to work like that. So KWL is a great way if you're trying to introduce students to this more conscious, I would say, acceptance of the process of learning. What I know is already there. It's my foundation. I can show off with this knowledge. We can compare what we know. We can decide what we know as a group as well. And it also shows why sometimes working in a group is so much more effective, because our knowledge as a group is so much bigger than the knowledge of an individual. Then what I want to know are those questions that I should be able to ask, right? And then L happens at the end of the lesson, is what I learned. And it's part of the assessment. It's part of the, feedback for a teacher. How effective was I teaching? How effective were my students absorbing the knowledge? How ready they are to grasp the subject from the right side, and so on. So if you're more interested, I'll have something at the end for you. So don't worry about it. I'm just here. I'm marking KWL chart. No, I know. I want to learn. I want to know. I learned. Another way to monitor student progress is, we are past the stage of asking meaningful questions, answering questions as an exit ticket. Why not create a game? And again, this will give me, as a teacher, knowledge about my students' knowledge, about their grasp of a subject, about their levels of progress. It can give me also the information of the potential struggles, because students, while creating their own game, will naturally exploit the topics that they feel comfortable about, and they will avoid the topics that they struggle with. I can see which of my students are struggling. I can see where are the problem areas. I can make sure we are going to come back to them and work on them at some point, and so on. Again, if you want to create games with your students, be with them all the way. Students are not going to build their own game from scratch. I mean, they will, of course. It's public school, or I don't know how it works in other countries. In Poland, it works that way, that you just get an assignment, you come home, you tell your parents, I have to do it, and they kind of will work it out. And then you come back with a ready project. So this is not what I'm getting at, okay? If you want your students to be able to show you really their progress, not their parents' amount of work, you have to be with them all the way. And you have to teach them how to do it. And again, it's time consuming, but it has this added value because the game stays with us. We can use it as a revision. We can play it with other groups or with other classes. We can keep it for 3 years after, and we can say, well, you think you're so smart. Look what my students made 3 years ago. Check if you can do it, if you can win the game. And we are creating this environment of learning, and we are learning about our students' progress. So games, not made by teachers for students, but made for students, supervised by teachers. Quizzes. Well, probably you were waiting. When will I talk about, those elements of teaching environment that's online? Well, quizzes are there. Of course, quizzes do not have to be online, but we do have Kahoots, we have Bluecats. What is your favorite quizzing platform? I'm wondering, my dear adepts of formative assessment, which of them, in your opinion, has the most elements of formative assessments? And I will reveal my answer at the end, okay? But again, teachers learned to prepare quizzes. Now we use ChatGPT as well to create questions for us. But what does that do to our students? It makes them lazy. Asking questions, finding problems, finding problematic areas is one of the most valuable areas of teaching. It's the source of teaching. It's teachable moment. I cannot, stress how important it is. So consider giving students quizzes as assignments. Consider encouraging students to create quizzes, even if it's just creating the quiz questions. And then you have to do something about it, include it in the test. Maybe students will give it in the digitalized form, then it's super easy. Maybe you will just do it together, sitting around computers in the IT room. I used to do it when I worked in high school. I made sure that one of my lessons is in IT room, and all the things that we had to get digitalized, we were doing there during our class time as a part of revision. And that was it. And I was doing it with high school students, with groups of 20 people. So it is doable. And I was still smiley and, and softy and everything. And we had an amazing time. Ways of monitor the students' progress is just a conversation, but students can monitor themselves as well. They can ask the questions before the test. What I like to do before the test, because I'm still using tests, is give students this moment to revise. I tell them, sit in pairs and now teach each other. Ask each other questions that you think will be on that test. And my students are quite good at it. And you know why? Because of those few slides before. Sorry, somewhere here. Because of that, because they are trained to ask meaningful questions. And what is more, when they ask the questions and they are really good, I include them in the test. So when we are here, they are going to know what kind of questions to expect. And the test becomes part of the learning. One of you said, Anna said, she likes to do a short test for a start of the lesson. I like to do that as well. And then it's part of my teach, test technique. So first I test to find out what they know. Then we learn, and their test results are actually starting points. And then we test again to see if we acquire the knowledge. But it doesn't have to be like that. It can be a test somewhere in the middle of the learning process, somewhere at the end of the learning process. The important part is that moment before the test. Sit and revise. It's your quiet time. You can work together and you can ask each other questions. You can make sure that your peer is better, that your peer's knowledge improves. And students can help each other while you are looking at them. You can find out what are the things that they are really struggling with. Because again, it is likely to be a moment when they will really ask meaningful questions. Well, they will really ask, like, how do you really make the questions with past simple? I don't get that. I keep forgetting. How did you manage to remember that? What's your way of remembering things? Another way to monitor students' progress is to ask for feedback from your lessons. I don't know if I'm not going too far, but I do ask my students regularly. Oh, somebody said that Bluecut is your favorite one. So since I have one answer, I'm going to come back to my questions about quiz. My favorite is quizzes. Or Kahoot in the pro version, when you can write your own answers, when you can really explore your knowledge. But I prefer quizzes, mostly because it feels like everybody's working in the same pace. And what I like about quizzes is that even if you finish the last, you can still be the first with points, because the correctness counts, not only being the fastest. Bamboozle is also cool. I agree with you. So, everybody has their own favorites. It doesn't really matter. I'm a big fan of quizzes. So I'm coming back to feedback. I love asking my students for feedback, because one of the things they will tell me is, hopefully, which part of the lesson they're not that happy with. And probably if they like me, they are not going to give that answer directly into my face because they are nice. But there are ways to find out about it. So, for example, when you're asking about, well, the content of the lesson, what would you like have more or less? Students are likely to tell you, we want more games and we want less books. And then you're thinking, like, why less books? Like, what's wrong with the book? And we are going to have a conversation about it. Maybe it's just the topic. Maybe it's just, this whole learning experience, and it's spring and it's nice outside and we just don't want to sit in books. Maybe it's just the fact that they're struggling with reading. And that is what really is the problem. That having the contact with the book is actually making them struggle with something other than the linguistic knowledge. I mean, this problem that we're currently working on in an English class, because they are just struggling with reading as such, and so on. So, but I know that it's a tricky thing. It's, it can be difficult to receive feedback, because part of the feedback is to be ready to receive its whatever comes your way. On the other hand, I think it's kind of fair that I'm giving feedback to my students. I'm telling them what is okay and what they should improve. They are giving me feedback and I should be ready to receive it, because that should be fair, right? Part of the feedback is this forward-thinking guidance. I took this nice sounding phrase from somewhere, but it is about anticipating problems on one hand. So whenever we are trying to work on something, I'm attempting to see the areas, the sources of the problem. And on the other hand, think about that. I'm trying to create this atmosphere with formative assessment as being really important. Guys, it is really important that we work continuously. I'm going to give you feedback on your progress. I'm going to help you out if you're struggling, and so on and so forth. And everything is going smoothly. And then, they are solving the tasks or they are writing an essay. And then I'm just giving them a 4 or a 3 or an F or an A or whatever is the grading system you're employing. And then my students say, okay, so why were you so big about the whole continuous assessment if at the end is the grade that matters? Well, the problem is with enjoying the ride, and this is where the projects come as a big help, and that has been a game changer for my teaching, to be able to employ formative assessments in its full picture. Because if you are going to have a project work and you are going to have a project work done right, then you can, irrelevantly of getting a final product being whatever, being a game, being a presentation, being a poster, being a model of some kind, you can still show the students that their input mattered. Because think about it this way. We are creating a model of a city. We learned about that city. We learned about its history. We decided which part of the city we want to build as a model. We learned how it was constructed, what kind of materials the builders used to build the actual city. We went to visit it. We took a guided tour of our part of the city. We watched a film about it. We talked to an expert in history about it. Put it whatever you want here. And then we built a model. And at the end, when we are about to present it, one of the students carrying a model falls down on the floor and model is crushed. Does that mean that all our work was worthwhile, was worthless? Well, if we are going to put the focus on the grade, it does. I mean, who cares what we did? We have nothing to present. But if we are going to say, okay, we don't have a model, but we did that and that and this and this and this and this and this, we can still assess our work. We can still decide who was committed and who wasn't, who was putting more, who was more responsible. We can still evaluate the whole project. We can still decide that next project we are going to plan differently. This is the core of formative assessment. This is the feedback. This is the collaboration. This is the learning environment we built. Who cares that we don't have the final model? It's a shame that we don't have it, but it just crushed. But it doesn't cancel all our work. What you have to learn is to, well, first of all, teach students to enjoy the ride. While we are doing it, we are doing something important. We are doing something meaningful. It's not for the test. It's for the sake of work. We are having fun. We are getting frustrated. We are not getting it little by little. We are helping each other. We are finding new ways how to do it. We are asking questions. But we have to also document it somehow. So that means you have to be in control of whatever the project they're doing. You have to teach them how to do a project, but you also have to monitor it. Monitor it frequently enough so that even if they don't bring anything at the end, somebody got sick, the computer crashed, dog ate my homework, whatever. Of course, it can be part of the final assessment, but if we are going to just judge the students by their final performance, that means we are actually canceling all the way. And all that way is formative assessment at its finest. If you are going to make your students work all the time, it doesn't matter that they crash at the end, because there is still job done. So think about that. That's why I love working with projects. That's why I do most of my work with projects right now, because this way I know what each person is doing. And I know how they are committed. I know how they are developing as well. Another part of this feedback project, enjoy the right thing, is mistakes. We all know now, we are modern teachers, we all know that we should celebrate mistakes because it means we are learning. That mistakes are indispensable, that they are big thing about learning. So, well, but then we write a test, and this is the mistakes that put us away from the best grades, and that's it. And if we have those grades at the end, that means our mistakes and our philosophy about mistakes may not be what we want our students to be. I'll speed up because I can see that but I hope you are going to stay with me a little while. So what we can do with mistakes, we can find a new context for mistakes not to be mistakes. Sometimes it's easier to remember, so we are showing this relativity of mistakes. I like to do it with a very popular mistake my students are making. I have 10 years. I'm usually saying, you have 10 years to do what? You have 10 years to buy a car. You have still 10 years because you're in prison. Like, what do you mean? And then they start thinking about it and they, okay, so this is what she understands. I have to say, I am 10 years. I am 10 years old. I am 10, right? So we are creating a new context, and then we are learning that, well, it still means something. Explore the relativity, that was it. Create the memory. Students love inside jokes. So try to create memories around mistakes. We all remember when we laughed, when something happened, but it has to be a collective experience. That's why I love making mistakes myself, and I love showing it to the face of my students, and I love laughing about it, because then sometimes I say, do you remember when I said something? And they are like, oh, okay, I remember that mistake, so I'm not going to make it again. Collect mistakes like trophies. Thank you, Aga. I love collecting mistakes like trophies because it means if I keep making the mistakes related to structures, or I keep making a mistake with two very similar words, let's count the instances, how many times our classroom, the students in our classroom are going to put, I don't know, a bear on a man's face. How many times there's going to be a beard in the tree? Let's just count them. How many instances we are going to have? Are we going to have more than 10? More than 20? When you do something like that, students involuntarily just remember, and even if they start making conscious mistakes, I hope they will, because that means they just learned the difference when they are making a conscious mistake. Learning journals. I practically have no time to talk to you about it, but this is the way to record all of what I said before. It is time consuming. Not everybody likes it, but think about it this way. We start in September, we finish in June. This is our journey together. Let's make it into class chronicle, maybe. Maybe let's make it into a collection of our mistakes. Maybe let's make it into a collection of our successes. Let's make it into a collection of the most interesting words, of the weirdest words, the words with weirdest spelling, and so on, of the weirdest structures we made while learning English structures, and so on and so forth. This is also continuous assessment. Why? Because we can stop at the last page and we can go back to first, and we won't believe how much progress we made. And now let's talk about tests. Okay, we already talked a little bit. We have quizzes. We can start with a test. We can do a low stake test during the lesson. What is important is that tests are not everything. The tests are just a way to monitor our progress, continuous assessment, and that's it. So let's keep them. Let's keep the grades where they belong. They belong in the rubrics. You want to give grades, you have to give grades. Do that. But make sure your rubric, your instructions cover your formative assessment, not the other way around. They have to stick to the philosophy that you're exploring in the classroom. It's not a problem. You just have to create the criteria that are in line with formative assessment. Give the students opportunity to pass external exams. They can test themselves. Make sure there is one test in your language school or two tests every semester outside, like identical for everyone. And let's check. Why not? But then we come back to classes and we come back to our work, which is also important. Well, Gosia, but tests mean control, right? We control students with that. Yes, but so does continuous assessment and so does feedback. Maybe your students won't feel that, but you will know what you're controlling. You will know their progress. Yes, it requires more attention. Sometimes it requires different approach to your work, but all in all, you're getting so much more from formative assessment that, well, for me, it was worth a try. I hope you can still be with me for this last moment and tell me, what do you take from my webinar? This is time for feedback. So I hope you're still there and you can tell me briefly what you're taking with you. We're just about to finish. Don't worry, we are just going to sleep. We spent a great time together. I'm still waiting for your answers. What would you like to take from my webinar? Very personal. And in the presentation, you will find a link to this very old, honestly, quite old, Cambridge English kit for formative assessment. If you don't know where to start, again, start here. It has the lights, it has the KWL chart, and it has the forms for feedback. It is a great way to start. I started with a similar thing and it really helped me. Project word you're thinking, students making games, perfect. Term assessments, perfect. All right, great. Openness to continuous assessment. I am so happy with you. I'm so happy. All right. And don't go anywhere just for 2 more minutes, because if you're regulars at Education webinars, well, there is something like we are trying to sell you something. But today I'm not going to sell you anything, because I have an Education event that's free of charge. That's free of charge, and it's in English. And that's why I wanted to invite you all to an event by Education and with cooperation of of a British Council. I'm going to share my screen and show you briefly what you can expect from that event. Again, free of charge. I don't know where you are going to be on the 24th of May, but I'm going to be here as a listener, of course, because I'm not presenting. The British Council and EduNation are inviting you for a free online conference for language teachers, and it's about from learning to effectiveness. We are going to have three presenters, three experts, Joanna Borkowska, Piotr Pluskota, and Luisa Wójtowicz-Waga, who we know and love. And we are going to have three exciting sessions: enhancing language education through external assessment, a strategic approach for schools and business, if you're interested. Then Piotr Pluskota, preparation and classroom ideas for APTIS, again, an external test. And Luisa Wójtowicz-Waga, how to measure your teaching effectiveness. And I'm not going to miss that for the world. So I hope you are going to enjoy that conference, free of charge, as I said. I would like to see you all again on any other EduNation Global event. And now I'm definitely going to say good night, goodbye. Sorry to keep you that long, but as you can see, continuous assessment just keeps continuous, so I couldn't finish earlier. Thank you very much. Enjoy your evening. Bye bye.